Hey guys, so for the last 30 days, I've been only climbing on my home wall. So this means I haven't been going to climbing gyms at all, and I haven't been doing any regular training. I wanted to make this video to showcase the changes that I've noticed from switching from regular climbing gym and regular training to climbing on the home wall and basically only training through climbing. And I want to go and give a lot of the kind of personal things that I've noticed, but I also want to kind of make this more generalized in case you're wanting to do the switch also, and if I'd recommend it, and kind of the things you might expect. So I think a good place to start is why I wanted to do the switch in the first place. So the first and probably the most important thing for me when I was switching was specializing, more specifically specializing for outdoor training. I felt like a lot of the training that I was doing in the gym was more for climbing more in the gym. It didn't really feel like it was beginning to carry over as much as I wanted it to for outdoors, which is kind of a lot of the points are going to be more catered towards outdoor climbing and kind of just trying to mimic the style. And I feel like, at least in my own experience climbing outdoors, the things that I lack and the things that are really demanding on the rock. So the second thing is hard climbs. In my gym, the amount of hard boulders has been very, very limited. And we have a moon board, which definitely has a ton of problems, but in my own experience, I don't believe that moonboarding has the best carryover to outdoor climbing. And I also feel like the moonboard can be pretty injury prone because of the style. So I didn't really want to spend every single session like 4 or 5 days a week on it. So being able to set my own really hard problems in ways that I feel like will be demanding, that'll transfer over to outdoors, was a huge necessity for me when building the wall. Number 3 is conditions. I think this one will probably only apply to some people, but in my experience, my gym has a tendency of being really hot and also really humid. And I felt like it was becoming more regularly an issue of friction. And so being able to have a lot more control over the humidity and the temperature was a pretty important thing for me. The next big thing is convenience. My gym is pretty far from my house. It's like a 40+ minute drive to get there. It's also not a 24-hour gym, so it's kind of a little bit of a reduced period of time that I'm able to go there. And for me, this isn't really that big of an issue. If you have a really tight schedule, it might be nice to be able to go earlier or later. But for me, that wasn't as much of a factor as just the location. So having something just right where I can just easily go and train not only saves time, saves a lot of gas money. So that was a kind of another big factor. Number 5 is creative control. And this kind of ties back into hard climbs, but there's a lot of styles that I felt like weren't being emulated in the gym. It was also just kind of a fun process, just being able to go and actually set a home wall. Next, I want to talk about focus. I think for a lot of people, they can have an issue with sessions really dragging on. I feel like being able to eliminate a lot of distractions can help your session become more focused. If you're somebody like me that really loves to talk to people at the gym, you can kind of talk, and then you're like, oh, I don't know what set I was on. Man, am I kind of tired now, or has it just been 20 minutes and I've kind of cooled down? Kind of reducing those things that might kind of get in your head and distract you can take away from your session. And the last thing that I want to talk about on why I originally wanted to go and get the home wall was price. Not only are gym memberships kind of expensive, gas is also really expensive, and that every single month can really start to add up. And a home wall can be a lot of money up front, but it can balance out over the course of months and years, especially if you get a wall that's a bit smaller. Mine is definitely really big, and you definitely do not need a wall as big as this. Okay, so pros and cons of making this switch. So luckily for me, the conditions worked out really well. It feels a lot better climbing in here. I can buy these things to go and get rid of the humidity. I've got fans up here. I got like 3 of them blowing on me at all times basically. So even though it's summer and I've got the doors open and it's like 70, 80, even 90 degrees up here, it feels a lot better. And this will be even better if you have somewhere that's insulated, you have like AC, or you have dehumidifiers. It's gonna just be a lot better than a gym potentially. But again, that's kind of specific to my gym issue. if you have a gym that already takes care of all these things, or you live in an area that's really cold or really low humidity, then probably won't even be an issue in the first place. So second pro, specificity. I did make this wall for outdoor climbing. A lot of the holds are really small, and I try to go and set boulders that mimic my experience on rock. And I do feel like I've gotten a lot better in those styles, which connects to the next point, which is going to be tension. For me, my wall is 40 degrees overhung, so when you put small, tiny holds on there, you really have to get a lot of body tension from your core, from your legs. And so for me, I've gotten a lot better at those. I feel like my loads on the climbing wall are a lot more distributed now, because I feel like climbing gyms can really reward just upper body, kind of front wheel drive climbing as it's referred to, where holds are typically bigger and it can allow for you to cut feet and still make hard moves. And at least for a lot of the climbing that I've experienced outdoors, you really can't get away with this kind of climbing. If your feet come off, you're off the wall, because typically outdoor climbing is a lot more three-dimensional. If a foot comes off, you might just be off the wall no matter how strong you are. So these 2 points kind of go hand in hand with that. So the next pro is difficulty. You can set certain climbs and certain styles as easy or as hard as you want to. So for me, a lot of my outdoor projects involve really just cranking on underclings, for example. So there's actually a lot of hard projects that I've got set that are really just rocking up and just locking on underclings. And this point can also transfer over to just regular spray walls. The next point is focus. Again, I wanted more focus sessions, and I feel like that's what I've gotten. Climbing alone, you don't have as many distractions, so I'll typically just put some music on. And in my experience, my sessions are much shorter on this wall, and I believe that's a couple of reasons. One, again, previously focus, talking to people less, having less distractions. You will climb and you'll train for what you want to climb and train for. You typically won't go off and try some other slab that somebody else is trying that looks really fun. So you'll have less distractions, your sessions will be shorter. But also, for me, in my climbing wall, the holds, again, being much smaller, much more outdoorsy, for me, I'm not able to climb on them as long. So my fingers get cooked pretty quickly, which results in my sessions being 1 to 2 hours shorter than my sessions would be in a regular gym. Also, am I stronger? Am I better? Speaking pure numbers, my finger strength has improved. Around a month and a half ago, I was able to pull around the low 140s, and now a month and a half later, climbing only on the home wall for the last month, my numbers have gone up to the low 150s at 170 pounds body weight, and this is a max pull on a 20 millimeter edge. I do also think that my pulling and other metrics of strength have probably stayed the same. As far as the discussion on being better, my technique, my tactics, I think that climbing on the wall has made me more specialized to this kind of climbing. So 40-degree overhang on tiny, relatively in-cut holds. I feel like I'm more recruited in the type of positions that I find on the wall. Areas that require a lot of tension, a lot of core and foot activation. But moving on to cons, we can talk about some areas that I think have fallen behind. So this kind of ties into the first con, which is going to be the untrained areas. Your body's going to adapt to the training stimulus that you put it under. And if you're not putting it under certain training stimuluses anymore, then it's not going to get any better in those areas. So for me, I've definitely noticed that my wrist strength has decreased because my wall doesn't have as many slopers on it. So there's been a decline in that stimulus from when I was training and climbing in a regular gym. I also believe that climbing alone is going to make you less well-rounded. Now, if you have a lot of attention to detail and you're really meticulous about it, this can be mitigated, but I don't think that can be completely avoided. I think that gyms force you to do things that you wouldn't normally do, which also connects to climbing alone. Since you're not climbing with other people and seeing how they climb and taking inspiration from their movements and their beta, it can kind of put you in this echo chamber where you don't take in more information and you might just reinforce your own habits, which might not be the best. And it can also really help if you, for example, have friends that you climb with a lot and they have different climbing styles than you. you'll be taking some of their styles and incorporating it into your own style. Me, for example, I love crimps, I love good holds, and I hate insecure and slopey positions. But for example, the friend that I climb with a ton is really good in those styles. So I'm able to go and learn a lot from him, how he climbs, and understand movements more. But I lose that climbing on this wall because not only does it just not have those style climbs, but I also lose that information from climbing with other people, and I just reinforce my own movement styles. And this is kind of saying the same thing again, but I really think that your weaknesses fall a lot further behind, because weaknesses are typically things that you kind of avoid subconsciously. You'll naturally gravitate towards climbs that you just enjoy and that you think you'll do better on. And typically when you're on the home wall, you just won't even initially just see problems like that. You might see certain holds and just instantly write off that it's impossible to go between them, or that it's just a bad movement. So it might not even ever be set as a problem, compared to if you're in a gym and a setter sees that and thinks, oh, this is perfect, this is right in my style. So I really think that your weaknesses can fall behind if you don't have that attentive intention to go and improve on them. And these points are also related to hold variety, because hold variety is really expensive. For example, slopers, because slopers typically require the hold to be a lot bigger, so getting a really well-rounded wall can be a lot more expensive. So next I want to talk about bad sessions. Having bad climbing days, bad training days is something that everybody has to deal with. But I think that most people, when they get a climbing wall, are gonna want some kind of relatively aggressively overhung training wall, 30, 40, 45, even 50 degrees I've seen. And no matter what holds you put on that, unless they're actual bucket jugs, they're still gonna be really demanding physically. And when you have days where your fingers aren't feeling very good, maybe you have a tweak or something, there's no slab to hop on to have a chill session. So in my own experience, I've had days where I've come up, I've tried to go and get a session in, and something's maybe felt a little tweaky, or just feeling like really just weak and low energy. You can't really shift to different wall angles to make things better, and you have a limited variety of holds unless you spend a lot on hold variety. So bad sessions can be really bad sessions, dangerous sessions, or just not sessions at all, because you just call it quits, which in my own experience I've had to do a handful of times this month already. The next point is inconsistent sessions. When I was climbing and training in a gym, pretty much every session was either really good or pretty good. It was pretty rare that I'd have just really bad sessions. But up here I've noticed that climbing on the home wall, I have a lot more variance in the quality of my session. And I really think that this is due to not being able to pivot your session. And for example, climbing in a gym, I might go and climb in crimpy style on one day. I might do kind of slopey, more powerful stuff another day, and basically just focusing on whatever area I'm feeling strong in that day. For example, if it takes me half a week to recover my crimping power, I can just hop on something that doesn't require me to crimp, and I can still have that 100% effort on a different style. But you can't do that when you have a limited hold variety, limited wall angle, etc. I think that's the biggest factor in why my session quality has such a huge variance in it. And it kind of ties back into points made earlier, but I also think that having a less well-rounded training on different types of holds and wall angles creates more muscle imbalances. So for example, your wrist might feel tweaky when you're only climbing on crimpy problems because you're not building up that strength using slopers, for example. So I've definitely noticed certain things feeling more tweaky that did not used to ever feel tweaky before. So then those end up requiring extra care and effort to address. So session length, again, because while I do think that having short sessions can be really good for building up your max strength, because the proportion of sessions where you're operating within that kind of top end of your power, because short sessions aren't going to just completely deplete your energy reserves. I am also putting it on the cons still, because I think that shorter sessions deprive you of skill acquisition. If you're spending less time on the wall because it's so demanding on your top end and a lot of the other areas like body tension, for example, like it's just a lot more taxing to climb on a 40-degree wall than it is a slab or a vertical wall. And so because it's so taxing and you need to go and kind of regulate the amount of training that you're doing, skill acquisition, just having time on the wall is going to become negatively affected by it. So this last thing I want to kind of bring up, I'm just going to put it in the middle because I think it can be good and bad, and that's mentality. In my own experience, I had a huge dip when I switched from climbing in a gym with other people to just climbing alone. I really feel like it can be a huge motivating factor to have other people around you climbing, encouraging you, learn things from them, interact with them, just having that social interaction. And I think that's really important, not only for just like an overall general having a good mental health. I also think it's really important for a lot of people for just maintaining their psyche for climbing. And so for me, I felt kind of demotivated on like the first week or two switching. Now I have that a lot less. I don't quite feel as demotivated not having people around me. I've kind of adjusted to climbing alone. But I do think that's a huge factor. And conversely, it could be a benefit, because if you're somebody that doesn't really like to be around other people a whole lot, I think that kind of zoning in, just locking into just training and climbing can be really nice for you, and it might just make your psyche better. But I think that's kind of something you have to talk about honestly with yourself, the things that are kind of motivating you and the things that are important for your climbing and for the sustainability. So overall, I would say the switch has made me just more specialized on the things that I'm focusing on, and obviously less specialized and less well-rounded in the things that I'm not focusing on. So would I recommend this for somebody else? I think if you're somebody that overall it feels more convenient to switch to having something right there, if you don't have access to really good resources around you that are going to benefit you in the things that you care about, and you're somebody that isn't going to be really negatively affected by losing the kind of social aspect of the gym, you really just want to hone in on something, get really specialized on a certain area, I think it can be really beneficial. But I do also think that there's kind of a realistic return on what you're doing. I think that there should be a balance. I don't think it should necessarily be completely cold turkey to switch like how I've done it, because I think that either way you can get to your goals. It's just kind of how you want to do it. For me, my personal thoughts on if I could go back in time and redo everything, not get the home wall, not switch, I think that for me it was definitely something that I wanted to do for myself, to kind of just prove that I could do it, because I was feeling really unfocused in my sessions. I felt like I was just running in circles, not really doing anything. So I kind of wanted to just take that kind of, all right, I'm just going to do this for a certain amount of time, see how it goes. And so for that, I'm really happy. But I do also think that after having done it for a month so far, I don't think there's necessarily a humongous benefit to doing it, especially if your gym already offers resources for the things that you want to get better at. For me, I felt like they weren't as available to me. So for me, it was kind of important to go and pursue doing this. So if you are going to do this, I would definitely recommend try to go and get some people to go and come over, have that kind of social interaction, get that diversity of different people's climbing styles, the way that they see the holds on the wall, have them set problems with you, have them climb with you, and then really just be kind of objective in the things that you want, in the things that you want to improve in your climbing, and just see getting a home wall, fix that, and just kind of would it be worth it? At least the way that I kind of view it, I don't think that overall you're gonna get more benefit out of a home wall, but I think it just kind of overall can add more specificity, making you a little bit less well-rounded, but maybe more specialized in certain areas that you're gonna be focusing on. That's at least been my own experience. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that this video was informative, and if you guys were thinking about doing this switch for yourself, hopefully this gives you some insight into if it's worth it and kind of what you can expect. And if you guys have done this before, or you guys are planning on doing it in the future, I'd love to go and hear how it's been for you guys and what your guys' goals are. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.